Alright, welcome to my walkthrough for Chris's campaign in Resident Evil 6. The goal of this video series is to help you achieve the game's highest ranking, an S, on the game's highest difficulty setting, No Hope. A lot of the principles that applied to my guide for Leon and Helena's campaign will also apply here, but I will go over some of the most important aspects once again in this video series. The thing you should know going into this particular campaign is that it is extremely difficult. In fact, Chris's campaign is easily the toughest out of the four, and the reasons for that will become clear over the course of this playthrough. There are lots of very lengthy combat sections, including quite a few where it is just very difficult to control whether you get hit or not. And considering how much damage everything does to you on No Hope, that makes this campaign a bit of a nightmare at times. As you're about to see, there is one major thing you can do to make it more manageable, however, and that is to play as Piers. Most people probably don't even try to play as Piers when they first get this game because Chris is one of the stars of the franchise and Piers is just some generic, unremarkable sidekick. Those things are true, however, there are several legitimate reasons why playing as Piers is actually preferable to playing as Chris. For starters, he begins the game with a sniper rifle, which means he has long-range options, unlike Chris, who has virtually none until Chapter 4 when he finally gets the semi-automatic sniper rifle. Piers' range is going to make him a far better choice, especially in the early parts of the game. The other reason to play as Piers is that during the parts of the game where he and Chris are split up, his sections tend to be a lot less chaotic. Chris typically has to fight more monsters during these sections, and given a lack of ranged options, these sections can be very, very annoying. If that sounds like your cup of tea, go ahead and play as Chris, and the vast majority of this walkthrough will still apply. But for the purposes of this particular challenge, I strongly suggest playing as Piers for your sanity's sake. With that out of the way, let's talk about the requirements for getting an S rank on No Hope. Your score at the end of each chapter is determined using 4 criteria: clear time, enemies killed, accuracy, and deaths, the last 2 of which remain the same across each chapter. You need to finish with an accuracy of at least 70% and die no more than twice. For the purposes of these videos, I will be going deathless, but just so you're aware, you can actually die twice and still achieve an S rank. The requirements for clear time and enemies killed vary from chapter to chapter, but fortunately they tend to be pretty forgiving. The game gives you more than enough enemies to kill, and so long as you don't dawdle or die too many times, you should be able to meet the clear time requirements pretty easily. So now let's talk about some general strategies for playing as Piers. Just like with Leon and Helena's campaign, ammo preservation is of the utmost importance, especially in the early going. For this reason, you must learn how to effectively kill enemies using melee attacks. If you're able to safely do so, it is always better to damage an enemy by punching them, kicking them, roundhouse kicking them, suplexing them, bashing their head against a wall, or any of the other numerous and frankly quite awesome ways that this game lets you take out enemies without guns. Resident Evil 6 actually has a pretty deep and robust melee combat system, but for reasons I have never been able to understand, Capcom just didn't feel it necessary to explain really any of them to the player, which I suspect is part of the reason this game wasn't as well received as it could have been. When it comes to becoming good at melee in Resident Evil 6, I think it's helpful to think of it like it's Dark Souls. Each time you use an attack, your stamina meter will deplete, and when you run completely out of stamina, you won't be able to melee again until your stamina regenerates. For this reason, it's important to make efficient use of melee attacks. The best way to do this is to take advantage anytime an enemy is stunned. When they are in this state, performing a melee attack will execute a grapple of some sort, which will do a very significant amount of damage. Stunning an enemy can be accomplished in a variety of ways. The most reliable way is to shoot an enemy in the face or legs, which will often cause them to flail around and give you enough time to run up and perform an R2 takedown. Another simple but very effective method of stunning is to slide into an enemy, which you can do by sprinting and pulling the left trigger on PS4 and Xbox. Stringing these kinds of attacks together is the single best way to kill an enemy in Resident Evil 6. Like I mentioned before, the combat system in this game is surprisingly deep, and there are a variety of context-sensitive melee attacks that you can perform, which are dependent on things like your position in relation to an enemy. I'll go into this in greater detail as we go along, but for now, the important thing is to internalize the importance of melee attacks.
I figured you'd be a little rusty, but it looks like all that training's kicking right in.
Can the chatter. You ready? All clear. Gotcha. All clear.
In this room, you're going to see me perform my first counterattack of the run. I gave a brief tutorial on countering in my first Leon video, but just as a refresher, most non-projectile enemy attacks in this game can be countered by pulling the R2 trigger at a very specific point in that attack's animation. The timing for a counter is so precise that I would actually consider it non-viable under normal circumstances. But thankfully, you can exploit something called an aim cancel to make countering much easier. The way you can perform it is by tapping the L2 trigger once to raise your weapon as soon as the enemy's attack animation begins, then mashing R2 for the next couple seconds or so. The animation caused by pressing L2 will prevent you from doing any actions during those couple of seconds, with the notable exception of context-sensitive R2 actions. One such action is countering. Exploiting this is a really convenient way to perform counterattacks so long as you're able to get the timing down for each enemy's attack. We won't be using counters in this campaign quite as often as we did in Leon's, mostly because a lot of the enemies in this campaign use projectiles, but a counterattack is capable of instantly killing a lot of enemies, so it is certainly a technique worth learning.
Leave it to me.
Alpha to HQ.
Here we're introduced to our first mutated Juavo. Juavo are the primary enemies you will fight during this campaign, and their big gimmick is that they will take various forms depending on which limbs you decide to blow off. If you blow off an arm, for example, they will grow a big monster arm that gives Juavo a great deal more range and is capable of putting you into a death state with a single hit on no hope. For this reason, the optimal way to play is to avoid shooting their limbs and instead aim for their chest, or ideally their head. You'd better be confident in your aim though, because if you keep going for headshots and miss, you're going to be in danger of not meeting the 70% accuracy requirement for S rank. I'm not an elite player by any means, and aiming on a PS4 controller isn't always the easiest thing in the world, so you will often see me aim for the chest just to be safe. As we've established, however, headshots are optimal because they will usually put an enemy into a stun state, making them prone to an R2 takedown.
Gotcha. Enemy sighted! Find cover!
I don't want anyone charging in. Just hunker down and pick a target.
HQ to all teams. We've just received reports that hostiles are gathering around Bosawan. Proceed with caution. HQ to Alpha. We've lost contact with the recon unit. Proceed with extreme caution.
Roger, HQ. Captain, be careful!
Bravo to HQ. Still neutralizing hostiles at 4 bars with Charlie team. They've taken heavy casualties. HQ copy. Sending medics your way.
Gotcha.
And here you see a little bit of comedy with the AI tracking. Your partner AI in Resident Evil 6 is mostly pretty good, but if there are obstacles in the way, it will get a little wonky and silly from time to time.
I heard you the first time.
Hurry!
I heard you the first time.
The best thing to do here is to use your machine pistol to take out the enemies that gather on the buildings directly in front of you, then switching to the sniper rifle to kill the enemies on the roof to your left. The Juavo have a way of blending into their environment sometimes, so I recommend turning on Piers' thermal scope to help you locate them. Again, the sniper rifle is just incredibly helpful to have in this part of the game.
Charlie to HQ. We've regrouped and are awaiting new orders. Things aren't going too well over at the Three of Diamonds. They need you down there. Roger that.
All clear. Gotcha. Captain!
An important thing to remember about Resident Evil 6 is that it was designed with co-op in mind. That's why there are so many sections where your characters will be split up and you will be expected to help each other. You're going to hear Chris ask for your help in killing the Juavo that are swarming him right now, and if you were playing with a friend, you would definitely want to do that. However, since your game-controlled partner cannot die, there's really no reason at all to waste all the ammo. Just bust open the crates in the area and make your way to the door, then patiently wait for Chris to show up. This is the first time in the game where the advantages of playing as Piers really start to show.
Gonna need a hand here. Make your way back to me ASAP.
We'll radio HQ for backup. You two proceed to the Ace of Spades.
Roger.
Where the hell do they keep coming from? Piers, can I get some cover?
No problem,
Leave it to
Captain.
me.
Captain,
Gotcha.
hurry. Good one. Hurry.
Gotcha.
Come here.
Take it easy, will ya?
Hurry!
Take it easy, will ya?
Come here!
I heard you the first time.
Come here!
HQ to
I heard
Bravo.
you the first time.
Captain!
Alpha
Take it
needs
easy,
to move
will
out
ya?
to Ace of Spades.
Come here!
Can you relieve them?
Roger. Coming in from the Four of Hearts.
Hurry!
En route to assist.
Gotcha.
Hurry!
Take it easy, will ya?
Captain!
I heard you the first time.
HQ to Alpha Team. You're almost at the Ace of Spades.
God damn it, an RPG! Bravo to HQ! We're taking some major heat over here! I don't think we'll make it in time to relieve Alpha!
HQ here. Copy that.
Guess it's just the two of us then.
Gotcha.
Where's the HQ? We're at the Ace of Spades.
Copy that. Bravo Team has been dispatched to assist with search and rescue. Stand by for instructions.
Good. I needed a break.
This part coming up is the hardest part of Chapter 1 by far. Joavo are going to start pouring in from everywhere, and there really isn't a safe place to take cover. I recommend staying in the area up the stairs because it isn't quite as wide open, and therefore it isn't quite as easy to get shot by a machine gun wielding Joavo. Keep an eye on the rooftop though, because they will continuously spawn there, and make sure to make effective use of the explosive barrels in the area as well, so those will be very helpful to you. You're also going to see some flying mutated Joavo here for the first time, and for them I recommend using the sniper rifle because they will typically die with one shot, whereas you'll probably end up using a great deal of machine pistol ammo if you try to take them out that way. There are a few flash grenades on the bottom level for you to pick up, so if you start to feel overwhelmed, feel free to use one of them, or some regular grenades to get enemies off your back. Beyond that, just keep your head on a swivel because there really is no safe place to hide during this section.
How many of these assholes do we have to kill?
Where the hell's that backup?
Hey guys, happy to see us? Bravo Team, weapons hot! Don't leave any Joavo standing!
Finally. Choose your targets and let's finish this!
All BOWs have been eliminated. Alpha Team, help Bravo Team get the civvies out of there.
Alright, and that's going to do it for this episode. I managed to get through the first half of this chapter without any health blocks being removed, so I'm pretty happy about that. And I will see you guys next time for the back half of Chapter 1. See ya.